What's up, Digidestins? This is Kyle D, better known as RideMyAvatar, and today we got a tier list for all of you. So hopefully you guys enjoy for Release Special Booster 2.0, what kind of decks we're going to expect in the tops. So without further ado, let's get into the video, shall we? So if you guys know, I do Crazy 1. Tier 1 is Crazy Strong, Gatekeepers, holds up with the meta. I do not do a 1.5. I think it's ridiculous and silly to say there's a 1.5 category. We do not need that. Tier 3 is good, but always just needs a little bit more. It can handle the tier 2s quite well, but once it faces a tier 1, it kind of crumbles a bit. Giving it better support, it can handle 3, sometimes knock into a tier 2 couple decks, but nothing too crazy. And then just straight up dead deck that just isn't going to do anything. So let's get into it real quick, shall we? So Jessamon definitely is good, but needs a bit more. We've seen some top, it does well in best of 1 formats, and depending on the format design, it can do really well. I would say it's a tier 2 deck in best of 1, but a tier 3 deck in the best of, you know, 3. So if you have to win 3 times with it, it kind of struggles a little bit there. Bloomlord, it's topping actually. It's doing some crazy, a little bit of shenanigans. I definitely think Bloomlord is always still a good bottom tier 2 deck that can still just clear out security, especially with the new support from Liberators that lets it unsuspend is really good. Then you have Phoenixmon. Phoenixmon does really good. It is a very good tier 2 deck. It plays well into the tier 1. It's one of those rogue strategies that definitely comes in play a lot. So just keep this in mind. Mirage, still doing Mirage shenanigans. I would say it's definitely a tier 1 deck still. It just does Mirage wants to do. You didn't get hit by the list and just wants to OTK like a king. Black War Greymon, I'm gonna say, yeah, it does well in the tier 1 category. Similar thing, needs a bit more now. We're kind of it's showing its age. It's not doing as well. Best of 1 formats, really good at it, but outside of that, no. Galacticmon's new support definitely brings it back into that tier 2 fray. That support really did do a lot, and JP, it definitely was showing some good use. The Mugen's still tier 2. I mean, it's still a Confident Pile can definitely do well, and again, I like to say that tier 2 is more of a rogue strat sometimes mixed in. Tier 3 is okay at best. Hunters still really good deck. It still even tops in JP even now going into their BT19 format. It still can get those wins and win when it wants. Beelzemon is definitely still a deck to be reckoned with. The ability to clear out security quickly and rush, I think it's still in the bottom tiers of tier 2, but I wouldn't say it needs a bit more. Definitely once it gets that surprise support, it definitely holds higher in the tier 2 category. Then we do have the Homer Loop. It's good, but once players start knowing what the hell you're doing, they don't expect you to win as very often. Once it goes off, it can scare a lot of players off, but Dog Loop is kind of falling off. Pata, Yellow Vaccine, doing Yellow Vaccine shenanigans. Good, but definitely needs some new support just to keep going. Shadow Seraphe might help this out, but I definitely think with the Seraphimon deck, it definitely needed some more TLC. Shadow Seraphe is really good, don't get me wrong. Then we do have Rosemon. Definitely feel like Rosemon is still a very top end, still very viable like Bloomlord. They both kind of just hold that strength. Then we got D-Brigade. Good, but definitely needs a bit more now. It's starting to show its age. It can do some fun shenanigans at locals, but it's just not getting there. Fenry Luga still can do some stuff at the local level and definitely handle well. Higher events, I definitely think that Fenry Luga just got outclassed by its Takamazuchi support. Then you have War Greymon. War Greymon's definitely moving down. I would say, I mean, best of 1 scenarios, definitely War Greymon is starting to tick down. Black War Greymon still shows more results because of its grindy matchups, but outside of that, I really think it's fallen off a bit more. Metal Garurumon definitely hasn't seen any tops lately. Even in Japan, it's definitely getting to the point where I might move these guys closer and closer down to dead decks, but just give it some more support now is kind of a little bit more what it needs. They became more splashable into the Omnimon deck than their own decks holding representation. The Oriyumon Digipolice, definitely good, but it definitely needs better support. It's almost close to dead deck as well. I might just say it's a dead deck. I mean, if you take it to a locals, it could definitely do something a little bit, but decks are just way too more interactive than your Oriyumon could handle. Actually, I'm going to move these two to dead decks. I think Digipolice and Oriyumon's Digipolice, I think both Commandermon's version and that are just completely out of the format now, and they're going to fall off. Apocalypse, this is related to the Balphamon strat. This deck can still make your opponent have a bad time. Apocalypse goes off, Apocalypse goes off. Valkyremon Ace, this deck does some shenanigans sometimes. Definitely say it's a tier 2 deck still because it's just a really good ace, and that's where we're going. Force Attacker with Vikemon Aces shenanigans. Again, Shokokomon, that deck just does things. Imperial Dramon is still crazy strong deck. It's still gonna do what it wants, and we know how that goes. Didn't get hit, it's just gonna dominate. Tyrant, Kabuteri, definitely a good deck. You can take it to any major event and probably do a good couple rounds, but then once players start knowing what the hell you're doing, you're gonna have a bad time. This is Black Base Doru. Black Base Doru, definitely chef's kiss, really strong deck. It has topped more consistently than the purple base, and I'm gonna be straight honest with you, I think the black base is just better into a blue format than the purple base will ever be, and I think that's vitally important data here. And then even with the purple base, I'll definitely say purple does better into black base format when you're not facing all these blue decks. Purple can definitely handle a lot of strats here, but the problem comes down to once you get too many blue decks, they're just going way too hard on you. Then you have Bunnies. Bunnies is definitely a good gate too. Definitely keep that up. Then we have the Vaccine Armors. This is definitely tier 2. It still pops up from time to time, doesn't go crazy. And even with its counterpart, the regular armor version, I would say they're both kind of split here. They're both evenly powered. Then you do have Ancient Greymon getting some small support, but I definitely think it's still holding up into Gatekeeper category. Ancient Garu definitely still going to be holding up the front line here. Just again, look, crazy strong blue decks. Who would have thought? Kazuchimon itself, it just needs better support at this point. It needs something. Argumon is definitely not doing much here. It's definitely dead deck. I'm gonna say tier 3 for Eos. Eosmon does well into tier 2 occasionally and does well enough to actually do some shenanigans, but isn't going to top you any major regionals. The Omnimon Ace deck, definitely tier 2. Shows enough tops in consistent wise. Takamazuchi, I'm going to put it into tier 1, especially because now we have this deck, and I'll explain in a minute when we get there. Greymon is just Greymon tribal pushing. This one's good, but again, falls into this category of needing a bit more to be really good. Emperor, focusing on the fact that you want to just get into what's his name really quickly, the Susanamon Ace. This is a very good tier 2 deck in my opinion. We have blue hybrid shenanigans. This is not bad here. Then you have the blue hybrid with Mirage Galga, definitely a good gatekeeper deck as well. Saddle Sharafe, like I mentioned for Yellow Vaccine, this deck with Dominionmon is pretty solid. Then we got Duskmon. Duskmon deck is definitely going to be one of those decks that either helps a lot of decks or doesn't. So purple decks are going to get really great support if you face against Duskmon, and that's where this is going to go. Then you have Rigumon. This card is okay, it just needs support at this point. No tops yet. You can splash it into a few decks, but I don't think it's worth it right now. Dynasmon. You're trying to kill yourself a little bit. Good, but definitely needs a bit more in my opinion. It can definitely go into tier 2 category very comfortably, but I think once you get into tier 1, it starts kind of just struggling a little bit. Does well into the rest of the bottom lines, but I think it falls off a little bit. I'm going to give Lucemon tier 3 status. It only has like 3 tops. It's not worth it, boys and girls. Do not invest. Then we do have base, the royal base. I think it's tier 2. It definitely is going to be something to behold. It is a very solid deck. We'll have to see where that goes. Dark Knightmon, definitely coming from being like give it better to support to finally being like a tier 2 deck again. Because of the Lord Knightmon X line, we're definitely seeing where this deck can go. Then we do have Lord Knightmon X being a new deck as well. Lord Knightmon with the Beast Engine is ridiculously strong. Expect a lot of players to be on it. Be very scared. Then you have Millenniumon, good, but definitely needs a bit more. The deck is kind of slow. It definitely relies on getting the right stuff into the trash as soon as possible. If it goes off, it goes off. It became that the boss Digimon became more splashable than anything else. Then you do have the old but reliable Alphamon. Definitely moved it down to tier 3. It definitely does well into the tier 2, but tier 1's kind of just shit on it. Then you do have a little bit of Mother D Reaper with fake Jerry coming in. I think she kind of just makes the deck a little bit better. And I know there was an 19th place into this format, and that might be something. Dragon Links, definitely good, but needs some more love. You definitely know how Blue Flare is. Blue Flare always gets good into any format. And then Gaiomon. Gaiomon's good, but definitely needs... I'm going to go dead deck as well, but once it gets its probably a new support line or something like that, maybe BT20, boom, this deck could explode. Then you have Leopardmon X. This is a good... Leopardmon's definitely tier 2. The way it plays is very strong, and I think it's a very solid deck. Heavy Leo's good, but definitely needs some more support. Levia, definitely going to say this, a tier 1 deck because of the protections that disappeared. You know, now decks that basically made Leviamon sad is gone. We know this for a fact. It's not coming back. Then we do have Galaxy, which is basically playing the Mirage Galaxy, kind of just the bottom end of Galaxy, and then you do Mirage shenanigans, you kind of get free evolves and all this good stuff. It's really a pain. Then you do have 7 Great Demon Lords, definitely saying this is falling down to Gatekeeper status, if not gonna start moving into good but needs a bit more kind of shenanigans. Ragna Lord, definitely still a good tier 2 deck. Mastemon is definitely tier 3. Dominionmon, with the new support and stuff like that, I think we're pretty good. I know I put Shadow Seraphe on here as well, but I think Dominion's really solid. Cherubimon shenanigans with the Cherubimon ace is good, but definitely needs more. The ace itself is fantastic. The deck itself is mid. Diaboromon, definitely tier 3. It's falling down. Bagra is definitely a dead deck. Then you have Hexablau being a just give it better support. It needs something. Iceclad just isn't doing nothing by itself, and a lot of decks, even in the current format, can just out the Iceclad King. Cinderellamon, good, but definitely needs some more support. Zaphigamon, good, but definitely needs some better support. It is definitely a tier 3 deck, if not for its expensiveness is just dying out. Then you have Talcamon, which is the Nature Spirit deck, good, but definitely needs some more support. I definitely think this is a tier 2 deck with the 3 Musketeers. The synergies there, right? And then Lilithmon X is definitely tier 2. Heavy Metal Dramon is a dead deck, does not even compete with anything right now. It's really weird. Black Blockers, you know how this goes. We're putting it in tier 2. I mean, the new Shadow Seraphe definitely moves the deck up and it becomes a little bit more consistent. And then the old form of Beelzemon, definitely tier 2, I think. We still can see it do something. It's one of those rogue strats that does pretty well. But I think this is a good cover basis of what you guys kind of expect going forwards. So what do you guys think? Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.